Hello, everyone. Happy to be here. Happy Wednesday. We are here live today to introduce a wonderful team from New York Life. And we get to hang out with them for the next at least 30 to 40 minutes to investigate how they transformed their entire digital employee experience. We're going to go through a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in, but before we do, I did want to wish everybody on this webinar a happy International Women's Day. Hopefully, everyone in the organization out there has had a chance to embrace and celebrate equity across your organization. So, happy International Women's Day to everyone, especially our women on the call. To make this a webinar that is interactive and fun for everyone, I just want to point out a few things about BigMarker, which is the application we're using to host this webinar. You are free to use the chat, converse amongst yourselves. Go ahead and tell us where you're coming to us from, where you're joining our webinar from, and say hello to each other. If you do have a question throughout this entire panel, you can ask them in the Q&A panel that exists on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, this is a special area because in the case you don't have a question, you can still use this area to go and see what other people are asking and upvote anything you think we should prioritize for the team once we're live with them. The other thing to remember is this is a recorded webinar. So we get that question, it's the number one that comes in. It is recorded, and yes, you're going to get a copy of this recording at the end. So stay tuned for that as well. If there's anything that happens with the audio and the video throughout this entire presentation, go ahead and just refresh your screen. It usually resolves all the issues that you may encounter. So with that, a little bit about who we are. Maybe I should start with who I am. My name is Greg Stortz. I'm the Director of Engagement here at Interact. We get to work with some of the world's coolest brands and help them set up their successful and very, very well thought through intranets across their organization. Now, today we're going to really dive into the world of New York Life, but you can see that we've helped other customers across the board that are on the screen here as well. And we're a group of very passionate and driven individuals who like to set up intranets and take that complex work of an intranet project and really make it easy and streamlined for the team on your end and for the employees receiving your new intranet. We're basically just obsessed with intranets. So with that, I do want to dive in and talk about New York Life. Now, New York Life and Interact have been in partnership since 2019, and the team here had worked really close during their launch into the pandemic, during the pandemic. New York Life is one of the world's most trusted brands, founded in 1845. New York Life is the nation's largest mutual life insurance company. They're headquartered in New York City, and they have offices all around the country and in people's homes with 14,000 employees, 12,000 agents as well. And each of those populations are separated and have their own intranet experience as well along with that. So you can imagine the complexity of an intranet launch with such a vast and broad audience that they have to work for. Recognized by Fortune as one of the world's most admired companies, they're also a great place to work certified organization and recognized for their diversity efforts within their organization. So happy to have you all join us. Now, I am going to let the team introduce themselves. And I will just say before I do, we do have more to this panel. There's some behind the scenes team members that have joined us just in case we need to elaborate on some of the things that we're speaking about today. They'll come off mute and join in some situations. So I just wanted to make everybody aware. Now, Emily, I'll start with you. If you want to come off mute and say hi to everybody and let us know who you are, what do you do for New York Life, and then we'll get around the room here.
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Einhorn. I'm in corporate communications at New York Life on the digital workplace team. This year actually marks my 15th year at the company, so obviously it is a great place to work. I started my career here working on an intranet and slowly moved into the .com side of the house. And then I came back to intranet at the exciting time when we moved from just a push communication portal to the social intranet. So as you can imagine, it was a very exciting time for us. So now I am on the internet team. We work digital workplace wide. So the internet is the biggest piece, but we do manage other digital tools from an employee perspective.
That's great. Oh, Emily went on. That's okay. Jason, let's hand it over to you. I know that's what she was trying to do. I'll hand it over to you, Jason.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Ng. I've been at New York Life all of 4 years, coming up at the end of April. I've started my entire New York Life career on the internet team. It's a big part of what I do. I also have responsibility for digital signage, managing our content management systems for that end. And a lot of the training and guidance goes through me as well. So a lot of the resource creation, documentation, et cetera, et cetera. So nice to meet you all. And I'll pass it off to Alonzo there.
Thanks, Jason.
Hi, all. I'm Alonzo and work on the digital workplace team. I've been at New York Life, let's see, maybe about 7 years in total. I came on as a consultant, working on the external side of the department, if you will, or the organization with the external website and the team, keeping those things in order. But I soon worked internally with the digital workplace team, and it was a swift transition. It's a great team to be a part of. We like to have fun. We take care of one another, and we like to take care of our clients. And happy to be here. Happy to meet everyone virtually.
We're happy you're here as well. And on the side of fun, we caught up in the green room just earlier before this, and I found out that the team is missing karaoke day at New York Life, and they're doing some charitable giving work there to raise some funds. So thank you for opting out of karaoke day. Hopefully we can still get back into the charitable giving right after this webinar, but glad you could take the time to hang out with us today. Welcome.
Yeah.
So let's dive in a little bit let's talk about the project. So this is your third iteration of the Square. So the internet has been called the Square. I'm not sure if it's been called the Square the entire journey along the way, but let's talk about that journey of the Square and how it came to be and where it landed today.
I start? Okay. Cool.
Yeah, Alonzo, please.
So
take it over.
Yeah. Take it over. So the Square has come a long way, to say the least, right? So I mean, if you see the first slide here, it's where we came from, and it's more or less what we called Vignette was our push notification kind of intranet, right? So it's more or less having all of the information from various business areas kind of like piled into this one kind of canvas here, and it was more or less, this is what you need to know, and come here when you need to, and we'll see you next day, right? So this is what we wanted to get away from. We wanted to be more engaging. We wanted to have a social aspect of the internet. We wanted our employee community to feel like they have a connecting point with one another, because being at the size of the organization is what it is. Sometimes we can feel siloed. Sometimes we can feel like we're distant. So we wanted to move to a more community-based and more connected way of interacting with each other, as well as increase our productivity on a daily basis, as we heard from our different business units that they needed to do that. So if you see in the middle here, we moved on to Jive, which Jive is the platform that the Square is actually originates its name, right? So Jive is the platform, but the Square is where we kind of carved out our niche, if you will, or niche, if you will, here with this. So you can see how the structure, even just of the homepage and how we engage the audience changed here. You can see we have these colors that were our action items, and you see we have the imagery that we're pulling in here. So more media rich, more media heavy, and moving in towards the direction of a more contemporary looking feel. just from, let's say, this old Lotus Notes looking feel that we had here starting out. So now we come to our bread and butter, in which we are at this particular point in time on the Interact platform. And as we are iterating now, you can see that we're more or less going into a very, I would say, responsive way of presenting the content, right? So we're serving it up for, of course, first and primary, the desktop employee, but we are laying it out and designing with the aspect of moving forward in a more mobile and accessible way. So that's some of the driving factor of what you see here on the last uh, image here of our layout and how we are really structuring the canvas to facilitate that.
That's
So
fantastic.
this is where we are now, Greg. Yes.
No, this is great. So three iterations of, well, maybe not the square, but of your intranet for your entire organization. Who decided the change was needed? Where did the change come from?
So, I mean, like Alonzo said, the change from the first was, somebody in the organization at some point had said, you know what, we need to move away from vignette. We need to get more social. And at the time, it was actually like a huge deal. Like I actually still remember, people saying like, what? Like, what is this? So, after we did get the buy-in, we were able to move forward. Um, and, we got onto Jive. Everybody loved it. And, once we were on Jive for a few years, with the contract being up, I think everybody kind of knew like where we were at. You'll hear us say probably several times in the next half hour, we work very closely with technology and HR, and, we're all on the same page most of the time. So we knew, our contract was up. Um, you know, it's not a secret that, Jive's roadmap, once they were acquired, was kind of static. Nothing was really happening. So we kind of knew we had to start shopping around. Um, and that was when, we met Interact at a conference, and we brought them in along with others. Obviously, we have to see what else is out there, and we move forward. So that's kind of how like the journey went with that, and brought us to where we are today.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that beginning of the journey. So you need a new intranet. You're not feeling like you're getting all you wanted out of your previous edition. So you move forward. How hard was it to get a project like this off the ground? In terms of how hard was it to get things rolling within the organization?
Like many things, people always say, someone we work with always says, we're 178 years old, 77 years old. I can't keep track. 100 is almost 178 years old. We move a little slow, but like, but I think many organizations, getting something started is always the hardest part. So, we say, okay, we're going to move forward with Interact, but we need to get technology involved, procurement involved, security. Like all of these things have to get done before we actually start the project. So nothing's really ever easy, and I don't think it's easy for anybody. Because it's not until we have all those approvals and the contracts are signed and everyone's good with everything that we can actually start the work to build our intranet and work on the strategy and work with technology and Interact to actually stand this thing up and move forward. But once that piece of it, I think, gets off the ground, things do run a lot more smoothly.
Of course. So I'm actually just paying attention to the chat, and I did want to just shine light on. Someone asked how big is your intranet team, and I saw that Denise in the background. Thank you, Denise. Answered that you're a team of 6. Are you all working on the intranet together? Is this, do you all take a sliver of it? What does that look like? A team of 6 working on an intranet?
Yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, so we divide and conquer. I mean, we do definitely crowdsource our efforts and back each other up as needed. Each of us have the same skill sets and capabilities to really go in and work with our community managers. Help them with document creation, creating their landing sites, their content areas. But all some of us are pretty specialized. Like Alonzo here, he's really the design focus here. So if we have a new site that wants to get revamped, and we let's say we need some new branding, some new artwork, we'll go to him, and he's really creative. He'll come up with something that looks really nice. That's kind of, people look at their site and they're happy to engage with it. So it's always, I would say, it's a really big project, of course, with 6 people to go, an organization of 10,000 plus. We kind of divide and conquer. So each of us are assigned different departments and areas of the business, and along them, the community managers who support those areas. So, we have an ongoing list of, who owns what, who's responsible for what area. But it's also very much a team effort too. If we have questions, I'll shoot Alonzo or Emily a message on Teams and say, hey, have you ever seen this before? What do we do in this case?
Sure.
But it's very team focused. It's great.
I love that. And
I'd say, sorry, I was
ahead.
just going to say, I'd say like everybody on the team wears 2 hats. Like Denise always says that everybody wears 2 hats. The intranet is being, customer focused, working with them is one thing, and then you've got your other hat. So like Jason said, Alonzo's other hat is design.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I can also add too is that the great part about our team is that we can kind of be versatile in that way, where we can work, put our heads down, know what we have to get accomplished, but when it comes time to show up for the client, stand in front, make sure we present what we're doing, it is clear that what we can deliver, we can do that as well. So that's great quality.
That's great. That's great. Now, I mean, just to shed light for everyone, and if you're paying attention to the chat, Denise is unraveling of the complexity of this entire project. So with 15,000 employees and a hybrid company, being 3 days in the office and 2 days at home, I can imagine the challenges that poses to you as an intranet team. It's vast. It's big. So let's use that as a segue to go into the objectives and dive into a little bit of the what was the purpose, or why did you, or what were you trying to make version 3 to be? And I know we have this slide here about your objectives, so I'll let Alonzo, I believe this is something for you to shed light on.
So again, as kind of back to what I began to say before, is that we wanted our employee community to feel better connected, and we wanted it to also improve the way that they worked. So it's kind of 2 parts here. Like you want the engagement part, you want the social part, you want them to be able to have the ability to come together and for our intranet to become the hub of the organization. And because that's the real goal. Like we want everyone to be connected to these different parts that we've been able to pull together with the tools and resources that the intranet provides for us. And we've just begun to really kind of like at the tip of the iceberg here with a lot of the things that we can provide. So that's the goal here, to provide more value to the employee as they work in their daily routine, so that the intranet becomes a benefit and a plus, and not something that they feel like a task that they need to do as part of their day.
Love that. I love that. So if we were to look at the employee experience as a whole, how did you balance what you heard from employees with what you've heard from leadership? So if you're looking at your objectives, was that difficult? I'm sure both parties had weighing opinions here.
Mm-hmm. So I think the important thing to start with is that when we look at the feedback from both leadership and employees, they actually align pretty much. They're pretty much the same. Like they're not vastly different. But obviously some people have stronger opinions about smaller things. Like, I'm not saying that a leader doesn't come to us and say, what happened to this thing? Or,
Right.
something super nitty gritty. But overall, I'd say, the goals of both employees and leadership is the same. Like, it's just like Alonso had explained it. Um, the other thing just to keep in mind is, when we did launch on on Interact, it was really a lift and shift. We didn't have our contract was up. We didn't have time to start, you know, we would need way more time to start like from scratch, new homepage, because when we make changes like that, we want to be thoughtful. We want to talk to employees. We want to do all that legwork. So for launch, we were like, let's change little because it's already a big change for employees. Just get everything over. And then once we were over and people got through the change, then we iterate. And I feel like that's the word of the hour.
Yeah.
But we're in a constant state of iteration. We've already, updated the homepage. And like I said, we survey employees, we talk to leaders, we look at our analytics, like we do all the legwork. And we have someone, a UX expert that works with us. We do all the legwork before we actually make changes. We want to make sure that we're thoughtful about these things. And things are constantly changing. The Interact roadmap is changing. We all
Yeah.
know, like, we get our releases, things are changing, things are
Yeah.
getting better, bugs are being fixed. Like, it's
Yeah.
always we like to think we're always moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. And to be honest, what you're saying is exactly the way to keep the life cycle alive, right? So you don't end up with a fourth iteration of the square, right? We don't want a fourth iteration. We want a continuous improvement to adjust and morph with our changing business and our changing world, right? And I think it sounds like you're on that. Now we're going to dive into a little bit of a roadmap discussion in a bit, but before we do, can we take a look at the experience, the designing of the experience? So now that we've learned a little bit about your objectives, where it was going, the challenges of that. Let's see if we can unravel a little bit about the design experience. So people stay clearly. I mean, looking at the expert years that this team alone is bringing to the table. People stay at New York Life for a long time, and they've seen. Emily, especially you've seen many versions of the square. How was it? Was there any resistance to change for this Interact edition of the square?
Jason's face says it all.
There's always resistance to change. I would say, I had a big part in the initial training and still even the ongoing training now, and people are still kind of, figuring it out. But they're getting better. Obviously, we've been on this platform for over a year now, and it's definitely improving. To really dive into it, I would say as people are getting better, to touch on what Em said, we're always reiterating, right? We're revamping. So people have looked at their initial sites that we did during the initial lift and shift, and they're like, you know what? I don't like the way we did this. I don't like, now that we know what the platform can do and we've seen more come out of it, and as it's improved as a whole, we want to make some changes. We want to do a whole revamp, a redesign to make it look more lively now that we know what we're doing in this platform. And that's a huge part of it. A lot of it is getting out of the mindset that, okay, we were on Jive, which is totally separate, could do totally different functionality, but now we have to adapt and learn what this can do so that we can really maximize the potential there. And that's a big part of it. A lot of people kind of are stuck in this mindset, and that goes with being resistant to change because something's different. They don't like it. They look at it and they're like, I don't really want to do this because I don't know what I'm doing. Well, it's like, it's not that difficult. Once you wrap your head around it, it's quite nice. So
Right.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah. I can also say that that's the one thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ann.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add that the only thing that's constant is change. Like we have to be comfortable with that at some point, right? But with this work, it's like we said, the iterations and how we've gone through the design experience is the goalpost is always moving here. So it's never a job that's going to be done, right? It's always going to be like, how can we get better? What can we do to make this better for this particular area, right? So it's always going to be that kind of give and take, and to me, it's fun. That's the fun part, right? Because you're always trying to solve a problem somewhere along the line, and it's always changing, and we have new tools that are always becoming available thanks to Interact, right? So we're always constantly iterating and trying new things.
Love it.
And I think we've proven that to our employees that we are
Yes.
constantly improving or looking to improve.
Yeah, and that makes them,
Right.
you know, they have a lot of feedback. Our employees are very vocal. If something's not working, they will let you know.
It's a good problem to have.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't
Yes,
hold
they
back,
will.
and they don't pull their punches. So it's good. It's useful for us because, you know, when we make these adjustments, they feel like they've been heard, and we are listening. You know, we are adapting constantly. So it's a big part of what we do.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I'd say we're like super lucky to have is our community manager community. I realize that sounds a little funny, but our community managers that, you know, manage all their sites. I mean, we have a lot of people, and, you know, not everybody is super involved, but I will say that the people that we work with regularly, you know, they're here to help. They help us push things out and cascade the information and tell people, like, this is a great tool.
Right.
All you got to do is this.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's great point.
And so you can utilize or lean on these champions, if you will, or community. That's fantastic. That's wonderful to have. This is great. So I have a video that I'd like to kick off the next section of this, if you don't mind, if maybe we start with this video. So so we did a video on you, sir. I'm part of your team. Square Day Today. So if we can play this, then we can have a little chat about what that looked like. But let's roll the film.
Collaboration.
Information.
Awareness.
Connection.
Access.
Community.
When I came in as an intern on my first day, the Square was one of the biggest things that was introduced to me, and I loved it.
The one thing that I want employees to know about the Square is actually kind of twofold. One, I would say it's the Google of New York Life. So anytime you have a question, you could go to the Square and try to find it through there. But it's also a way to get in touch with the New York Life brand, the values, the people that make up New York Life.
For me, the Square has come a long way, baby. It's a great vehicle, a great story, and the digital team has done an amazing job.
The Square is definitely easy to use. I can find folks whenever I need them, their phone number, whatever the case is, it's right there.
My favorite thing about the Square is it's always changing. There's always new stuff on there. I get to learn a lot about what the company is on things that I never knew existed.
I would say the favorite area that I visit on a regular basis is Inside Tech. That has a lot of information that we share from a technology organization.
We actually have a foundational business Square page that talks about our objectives as well as our goals for the year and how we're progressing against them each month.
In service, we have over 2,400 people in over 180 locations. And so being able to put something out there and have everybody comment on that or communicate about that, collaborate about that is really great.
And then if you take a step back and you think about the organization, right, with close to 15,000 employees, you know, it's an opportunity to connect with everyone.
My favorite thing about the Square is when I personally post or make comments, I feel like it drives an exchange with people.
It's like social media for corporate companies.
I open it for
Collaboration.
Information.
Awareness.
Amazing. This video, it must be a super validating thing to watch even today. It definitely does that for me, and like, well done to you and the team for being able to hear that kind of feedback from across the organization. It's incredible.
And I'll say, like, Karen, if you remember, she said the Square's come a long way, baby. She was one of our first. When we first went to a social intranet on Jive, she was she ran the first campaign and was so successful and basically told everybody about it. And she still is, you could tell she's just one of our biggest supporters.
Super passionate too. That's fantastic. So we know, we'd love to say about intranets that if you build it, people will come to it, and that would be the most ideal situation. But we know that in order for a successful intranet to take place, it needs someone dedicated. And in this case, you have an entire team dedicated to the success of the Square, and the effort that you pour into it is I mean, look at that video; it's easily seen. Can you tell us about the governance that's involved with running? I mean, first your team working as a whole, but the intranet as a whole. You mentioned something about having many community managers. So, what's that like?
Yeah. So in terms of governance, I mean, first when people first access the Square, we do have a terms of use and agreement. It really adheres from a corporate standpoint. It really adheres to our company policy. Obviously, some common sense, some logic applies there. Anything you wouldn't put, in email or post in Teams, you probably wouldn't put for everyone to see on the Square, where the company could access publicly. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I do host trainings and kind of go over the governance model with everyone of what to post, what not to share. And we also have a lot of users who use a flagging process. So if there's something that's inappropriate for whatever reason, they can reach out to us and contact us and say, hey, I don't think this belongs here. Can you take a look? Can you review? So we do have that kind of internal review. But really, the governance comes as well with the best practices and use cases from, modeling our most successful sites. They see it, they want to impersonate or, mimic that on their own site. So it kind of follows through. I think once you have a couple successful models, it follows through pretty nicely. And our governance model also works because there's two kind of spearheaded sites. The way I see it is one is kind of strictly informational, right? It's a one-way transaction. You have, as sexy as code of ethics are and compliance, and everybody loves reading those, not everybody cares to engage with it. So the other half are community managers who want to come in and they want that exchange, right? They want people to post a discussion forum, share their comments, share their experience, their stories. So that's really, it falls into two categories there. But overall, it's pretty smooth.
Good. So we've heard a lot about your reasons for doing a third iteration of the Square. But looking at this new intranet, are there any additional things that have happened that may not have been maybe intentional or just culturally shifted and things changed, and you're seeing now the Square being used for various reasons? Is there any unexpected ways that the Square has kind of creeped into the workplace and become a useful tool in different ways?
Yeah, I could go for this one as well.
Yeah.
I would say, our biggest use case, or one of our biggest wins, was the return to on-site work, right? When we had to bring everyone back in from the pandemic, the intranet there, we made a return to on-site work page that was a single source of truth. What do I do if I've come into contact with someone who's been infected? What do I do? What's the policy for me to work from home? What's the policy for me to get, tested? Things like that. That was, vital to our return. And I think without that, we would have had a lot more struggles. But I think the process was very much smoothed over by that, so that, nobody saw that coming. So I would say it's an unexpected win for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can add to that, Jason, and say that, as even prior to coming back in, having the ability to communicate and connect with others, having the Square, and before, of course, as Jason said, of course, no one would have planned and expected this to happen, but having the ability to reach out to your coworker or maybe share a note or two, or be able to not physically be there, but have this Square in the environment that it provided to our employees as well as leaders to be able to communicate timeless information. Some people who didn't buy into the whole intranet kind of life cycle and style, this environment of the pandemic just reinforced the need to have the ability to connect, to have the ability to communicate. And it's just, kind of giving us a push, a wind in our beneath our wings, if you will, as we continue to develop. Yeah.
Amazing. So just a question for the team here. What's your proudest moment in this entire process? If you could list one.
So I thought about this, and I actually feel like at first I wasn't sure what I was going to say. But the guys just talking, like Jason talking about, return to on-site work, all that stuff. And I remember when we launched about a year and a half ago, I guess, I remember us saying to each other when we launched, like, we started this project after the pandemic started. I mean, we launched a brand new intranet in the middle of a pandemic. We never saw each other. I mean, like this, but like we were never in person. Like, and I remember we were like, somebody actually said, like, we could do anything. Like, we did this whole thing in the middle of a pandemic. We are awesome.
Yeah. We were
And,
so
like, maybe
effective.
that's it.
We took it up to senior leadership and we said, why are we coming back into the office again? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Right? Message. Get it. But yes.
Good.
Very well said.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, how difficult. I don't think I've seen an intranet launch without a post-it note, right? So like, good on you to be able to digitalize this entire collaboration experience amongst the entire team. So that's amazing work. Amazing. So if we can shift into the future, we've been alluding to this fact that the intranet is a changing place. Interact's changing. Your organization is changing. You're dreaming up bigger and better things for your employees. So I wanted to just touch on the future of the Square, if you can, and where we think that it's headed. So, do you have a roadmap for the Square aside from what we're feeding to you? Do you have a list of things that need to get done and that will continuously improve your intranet?
Yeah, I think, I'd say one of our number one goals is to increase our employee participation. Like there are certain things that are constant, but, we will never stop trying to like get that participation higher and higher. And we know that, there are things that are more roadmap based that we need to get that number higher. So yeah, we take employee feedback. We know they want gamification. We know, they want more features. And, that is part of what drives our roadmap. And obviously, leadership buy-in, technology buy-in, HR, another one of our big partners, communications, our own department. So that's I'd say where we're at.
And when it comes to influencing the stuff that does change on the Square, what does that look like? Is it is someone just continuously prioritizing this for you, or do you as a team meet as a committee, or do you reach out to the external stakeholders of your organization to ask about that? Like, what does that look like?
We're often meeting internally because we are in constant communication, I'd say, with our partners. I'd even say Interact is one of those partners. It's you guys and all of the departments that I mentioned. We're in constant communication with them, so we use that information to help reprioritize or inform it.
Of course.
And I think too, to add to that, it's the partnership, like Em said, with everyone. It's also a better partnership with the employee community, so that way we can really fine tune what they would like. It's a lot of times we iterate because we know from a high level we can see a little bit down the road with the roadmap and everything, but becoming a better digital partner with the employee means that we can actually make their lives easier. So I think that's kind of baked in also to the future of what we're trying to do with the Square is make your life easier on a daily basis, so that way everyone can again buy in and we get more participation.
Love that. So if I could ask, where do we see the Square in 2 years from now? What do we think the Square looks like? I know, tough question.
I would like to say
My name's not
better.
next to
Like
this
you can
one.
say one word, like better, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of adjectives I can use here.
Yeah.
I would say, I know this is maybe jumping the gun for those who don't, have Interact yet. But it would be, the additions you're providing, like block editor, things like that. Basically, enhancements that allow people to view documentation or view pages or articles or content or consume content more readily. Not that it's not already there, but there's always ways to improve it. I mean, there's never a stopping point where we just say, we rest on our laurels and we go, we're happy with where this is at. I mean, we're always ongoing and pursuing improvement and enhancements. So, it's a mixed effort. We do touch base with the external stakeholders. We do touch base with ourselves as a committee, like you said. There's a lot behind it, and we don't have all the answers of what's coming in 2 years because we never know. I mean, knock on wood, it could be global pandemic 2.0, and we'd have to figure that all out again.
No.
I'm not trying to
God.
change it. I'm just saying we don't know. We don't know.
Of course. Yeah.
So of course, improving and continuing to up engagement, I think, is a big one for us. We have the participation numbers. I think Em probably knows off the top of her head, but I'm always looking for ways to improve and simplify. My personal goal, as I've been going through each of the pages, I'm kind of tracking almost what you would call, I guess, friction. How long does it take you to find the information you need? If I need HR, if I need IT, if I need tech support, how many clicks does it take me? How many pages am I going through to find the information I need? So in the back end, I've been doing a lot of housekeeping and trying to figure out how do I reduce that and how do I make this as straightforward as possible?
Of course.
Yeah. And this, I think to that point, reducing copy, like, I guess that's a goal too. Like not everyone is reading as much as we would like them to read, right? Especially if you speak with internal editorial, they're like, wait, we want some more eyes on this story, but wait a minute, they are not ready.
Yeah.
It's how do I convert that copy to something rich media, right? Like video, animated GIFs, something that will keep the engagement, but also get the point across, because that's a goal that we want to achieve and help out our authors and editors, so that way their communications can be met with the party, but at the same time make it more fun.
Absolutely.
And more engaging. Yeah.
And to that point, I believe like we're in a very unique space right now where we have a large generational gap between the non-working force and the retired force. So it's we're seeing a very large age group entering in our workforce. And to your point, it's exactly the way we should be looking at it, is how do we go to more video and animations to get our point across, to still catering to those who love to read and want to absorb more through that kind of style. So it makes our lives a little bit more challenging, but that's why we keep our space here in the organizations we work with. So I love that. Great. I'm excited. I think everything I've heard so far, like I know that the Square will be a completely, and we'll come back to this, in 2 years to just see where we're at. But it sounds like you have the listening strategies in place. You're connected well to your organization to continue to evolve and make this a better space to work in. So we know that it's great. This whole team has the Square in good hands to make sure it slingshots forward. Now, I'm going to open up the floor for questions. So a lot have been coming in. I've been watching the chat. So we'll just dive in to do a little bit of questions. Now, for everyone still on the call, something's going to jump up on your screen. If you're interested to learn more about the journey of New York Life, things that maybe we haven't covered, or Interact itself, you can definitely throw your email address into this little pop-up here. Should just take a second to load. Sorry, it's not the fastest thing, but use this to just let us know that you want to chat with one of us, and we're happy to always have a conversation to delve a little bit deeper into what Interact can do. Now, opening up my Q&A panel. If you haven't already, you can start up voting, and I see that there's a few up here that will start. So we'll just go in priority order and go from there. So feel free from the panel, anybody who wants to dive in to help answer. How do you drive traffic to the intranet, and how do you source company news? Two very, very good questions, and maybe go in hand. But let's focus on the driving traffic. That's a culture shift. It does mean where you're trying to make it the hub. That was your objective. What all comes with that? How do you make it? How do you make the hub? The place to go? Like,
I think so. Way back when, we had this lofty goal of, really cutting down on email. We've been on a social internet since 2015, and that was a huge shift. But, at some point we're like, just check the square. But unfortunately, like it doesn't work like that. So I think there are many people who are just at this point conditioned to check the square daily. And we can tell you they do. They come daily. But there is a group that don't. So there are emails that go out. And it's fine. It drives traffic to the square, and we get eyes on the content. And then as for sourcing company news, I'd say, and the guys may want to add on to this, but we do have, an editorial team. We're in corporate communications where a lot of the content comes from. And we also partner with marketing often. So between, our external news and our internal news, that's really, they populate everything. That's really where it comes from.
There's never a lack of content.
Yeah, well, with 50,000 plus employees, I can guarantee that's true. That's great.
In fact, sometimes there's too much when we're like, can you hold that story? Because the latest has only been up for 6 hours.
Right. No, absolutely. All right. Nicole asks, what is your most popular content with users? What resonates with your user base?
Promotions.
Yeah, I was gonna say promotions, things that highlight achievements or successes with employees in our own company. Really, people really take to those articles a lot, especially video too. A video gets a lot of engagement. For example, our giving campaign, which is our charitable month. There's a lot of videos that go out that people love to see. Humanization videos and articles too. Those are very good. I would say.
Yeah. But I think that what Jason hit on is it's good spotlighting employees. Our employee base really likes the fact that we can spotlight and appreciate each other. That drives a lot of the likes and commenting within the community.
Right. So you have a good... Yeah, go ahead, Emily. Go.
I was just going to say, I think that also just kind of, and I know it's human nature, but it also speaks to our culture. Like, we are a people company. I mean, think about what we do.
Right.
But we truly care about each other. So.
Yeah, and that was exactly what I was just about to say. It speaks loud volume to the culture you have. To be able to hear that the people stories are what really make people come to the square. That's I mean, I love that. This is great. All right, Amy has a question here. It's kind of a long one. Does your intranet team of 6 handle everything? Do you have page admins from other parts of the organization that own or are responsible for pages or content on your intranet?
I can take this. So our community managers are really responsible for the content and managing the content on their page. We come in to help set up the framework. We'll have a kickoff discussion of what that site entails, what goes on there, and how they'd like to see it. But really, once we start the handoff, they're responsible for managing their pages, expired content, things like that, and cleaning up and really maintaining the repository. The community manager, yeah. We hand it off.
We're like the renovators. We're like we come down and we do the demo. You know, we do the demo. We knock down the walls. We get the sledgehammers. We do the whole redesign. You know, come in. We stage the furniture. We make everything look nice, and then we hand it off. So we could not do it without, I believe Emily mentioned it earlier, our community managers. And they are definitely champions because they are the ones that day in and day out maintain their communities, their content areas as we build them out and structure them as they request. We pass the baton and they kind of run with it, if you will.
And many of them do have, an editorial calendar.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the questions we get all the time. How do I keep people coming back? And we're like, well, you can't just build it and walk away.
Yeah.
Like, you got to keep them
Right.
coming. Like, have a cadence, like post your spotlights, post new comments, and new things, encourage people to come on.
That's great. Good. Okay.
But we do. I can also plug the community managers resources group that we've built. Scott on our team has been having a helping hand with that, and all of us to really create a hub within a hub for those community managers, because, like you said, we definitely need a place that allows us, the small team like we are, to be able to have a backup, to be able to refer our community managers to this place of resources that can help them as we manage projects and as we kick off new projects, so that way we can stay afloat.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I see a question here from Brian next in the queue, and this gets on the technical side, and I'm gonna attempt it. Let's see if there is an answer from this team. Do you have any integrations outside of Interact, and do you index content outside of Interact with the search function? So
We do, at this time, we do not. Sorry, Greg.
no, that's okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that this functionality exists, and it is quite possible to do so. And we have search APIs and things that can push to other areas if you want. Things can come in, things can go out. Quite simple in a technical world, not for me. If there's nothing else to add, then I think we'll leave this question.
Yeah, we don't leverage it at this point. I do, I'd say as part of our 2-year roadmap, we would like to integrate into other applications, whether it's, ServiceNow or SuccessFactors or, our Outlook. But at this point, for several reasons, we have not, but it's not outside our roadmap.
Of course. Yeah. And I know, I don't know if you saw the new Teams app that can be built within your organization. So, it's, there's so many things we could be doing. Absolutely. It's all there, just waiting to hit your roadmap. That's perfect. All right. Angie has a question. What factors and capabilities led you to choose Interact as your intranet platform? This is, I'm actually interested in this answer. So what was it? What intrigued you the most?
So I'll say Interact. They, when reviewing, we had multiple rounds, multiple stakeholders with many vendors, and I would say Interact, they had the most approachable, I think, from a standpoint of what the site looks and feels like in their model. And it was very helpful for us to kind of get an understanding of, what they're driving towards. And I think it really aligned with our goals for what we wanted as an intranet, right? We wanted the engagement. We wanted people to feel like the content was connected and there and displayed. So that's, it really led to us to pick Interact as our go-to source. And, it checks out. And so far, the platform's been great.
Good.
Yeah, I can say probably cost, maybe. But no, just kidding. But no, you have to have something that makes you stop and sit down at the table, right? If you got to sit down, take a moment, let me sit down at the table, talk to me. I like what it's sounding like, right? So that, of course, cost is a factor with this. And again, to Jason's point, I think with Interact having the roadmap that it has, it definitely displays, an organization that is willing to innovate and willing to make the necessary changes to be successful. So definitely want to be connected with an organization like that.
I was thinking the same thing. Like for me, I'd say like the number one factor, and I'd say one of the best things about working with Interact is they're constantly, fixing bugs or coming out with new features. And on top of that, they listen to their customers. So Angie, I don't know if you are on Interact yet or where you are in that process, but I'll say like, we meet with product once a month and just like talk about like what's coming, what we need, it's their ears are open.
Yeah, and I also, you get the bonus of working with Greg, which is a huge plus. I've stopped in.
It's true.
I've stopped in on
the movie star himself.
Yeah, he does listen to feedback. I've on Block Editor, one of the features, I think I dropped a list of like 20 requests, and some of them have come back in product launch. And I haven't sent you a thank you email yet, Greg, but I will. It's coming.
I appreciate that. No, it's absolutely true. And I too was once a customer, very much in your shoes, and everything you just listed resonates so well with me. One of the things that I can also say, and I don't know if this resonates with you, but Interact is not a platform that tells you how to do your job. Right. So you can build things within it. Right. You have a slew of tools that you can put together to build an ecosystem. Right. Whereas I know a lot of other platforms are basically like what you see is what you get, and you have to kind of conform to their way of doing things. So I know that's one of the great things as well. Good. I want to not end on this question, even though it sounds like a great question to end on. I'm going to take one more. I know we're going to go straight into that top of that hour, but I do like this last. Angie again is getting all the votes. How did you measure success in against your objective? So we saw your objective at the beginning. Has the measurement changed over time since the original implementation? Love this question.
That's a great question.
It is a great question. I'd say, I feel like I've said that. I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but the participation and engagement metric for us has always been, king. And how we've kind of figured that out has changed over the years. But obviously when we launched, we went from, I don't know, 27, 28, Denise can come off mute and correct me if I'm wrong, percent participation, which is not being, a passive audience member. You're liking, you're commenting, you're sharing, you're actually engaging with the content. We did have a drop when we migrated to Interact. Obviously, like it's not a surprise. But we are steadily going up. So I think for that has been, like I said, one of our top goals.
Yeah. And I think the benchmark continues to go up as we move forward, right? Because as we add new tools and the resources to the platform, more engagement, more participation then follows. So, we're kind of like being able to test between before and after. So, yeah.
And, obviously people do come to us with their, standard analytics requests. But for us, looking at the intranet overall, the engagement participation for us shows us how successful we are.
Fantastic. Good. Team, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for sharing the ins and outs of what it takes to get the Square up and running and continuously evolve it and change it for your organization. I have to say, I know the job that you're doing is thankless, and I know that maybe you have a culture of people knocking on your door and saying thanks for the Square, but I know that in this role, it is quite unlikely that someone's doing that. You always hear the bad, but never the good. But the team at New York Life they have no idea how amazing it is to have a team like you controlling their intranet and making it better day in and day out. So I personally want to thank you on their behalf and our behalf to all the work that you do for your organization. So, and thank you for hanging out with us today. Emily, Jason, Alonzo, amazing. And we'll definitely have you back again to tell us how the Square is going and what's evolved since we've last caught up. So thanks for your time today, and we'll catch you again later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.